we go. So this week I was in a little bit of a time crunch, and I am coming to you from my garage. It's okay, I have everything I need to make a serving tray in my garage. So this is what we're going to be working on this week. Probably for more than this week, probably for a week or two. But this is going to be how to make a serving tray with tiles, so we can start learning how to use some stuff in ceramics. Let's go to it. The next step is we're going to lower the blade till it is about halfway up into the stock we've cut. So now I'm going to slide the sled pretty close to the blade, and I'm going to begin cutting my dados. I'm using just under 1/4 inch plywood, so it's probably going to need 2 cuts to fit, but I'm going to check after the first cut. So after the first cut, I am checking, and I will definitely need a second cut there, especially since I have a thin kerf blade. I might even need a third cut. So I'm going to do all my stock this way, and then I will come back and add the second cut. Then it appears after my second cut, I am going to be A-okay with this dado, so I'm just going to continue on from here. All right, so what we got to do now is, since we have our dados cut, we can now move on to cutting the pieces down to a more usable length, and then cutting the miters on the table saw. So what I'm saying is we're going to kind of roughly figure out the size, because we have the overall dimensions that we need. So we're going to shorten them a little, or rather extend them a little, and that will give us what we need to cut. So we are going to cut the longer pieces at 20 inches square, and then the shorter pieces we'll cut 15, and that should give us plenty of room for anything else we need. So I'm just going to go over here to 20 inches, make a mark. I'm going to come over a little further. I'm blocking the camera, I'm sure. Going to come over here a little further on this one. It looks like I can get 2 long pieces out of it. 20 inches there. I'm going to take the square, and normally I would show you this on the table saw, but since in class I'm going to make you cut it with hand saws before I do my work on the table saw. I'm just showing you the procedure. You'd mark out where the 20 inches is, maybe on the side, and then you bring it around to the top with the square, so you know exactly where to cut. Clamp it into the vise, nice and close to the vise, and then we would go to work cutting on the vise right here. So I'm just going to use this back saw, get my spot started, and cut right along the line. So that's one long piece. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to mark the top edge as I've marked the side edge. There we go. And I'm going to just cut through here. Now I won't do this with the short sides, because it's the same procedure. You're just cutting to 15 inches on the short sides. And then after there, you would come to me at the table saw, and I would cut the miters. So, loosen this. And there you go, long side with a dado joint. And the plywood that we're going to be using is going to go into said dado joint. I might have to slide it in because it's a little bent, but that'll only help hold it in place. So it's one of the long sides. I got to do the 2 short sides now, and then I'll meet you over at the table saw. All right, so what we have here is a 45-degree angle jig. It cuts 45-degree angles, which is what we need for our miters. And I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of wood prepared, my long sides and my short sides. So the first thing you should do is you should come to me and I will cut your pieces all at a miter that's going to work, which looks like it's going to be on this side for the most part. And we will get started momentarily. I just got to line it up and I'll cut all 4 of your miters on one side. All right, now that I'm ready to go here, I've got to actually measure, and I'm going to show you how I want you to measure. So on the long pieces here, from the outside of the bevel, so like the bevel's facing down here, the outside of the bevel, I'm going to measure from the end, and from the end, I'm going to measure on the long piece, I'm going to measure 18 3/4 for the long piece. 18 3/4. Right there. And I'm going to take my square and I'm just going to measure that off. And once I get that measured with my square there, I'm going to write right on that piece right there that I'm cutting off 18 3/4, just so you guys can see again. All right, and then I got to do the same thing on my shorter piece. Once again, bevel facing down from the outside edge. On the shorter pieces, I'm going to do 13 5/8. So 13 5/8 is right here on this ruler. I'm going to use my square to mark my line. And I'm going to say 13 5/8. Now let's go to the table saw and cut those out. All right, I am back up here at the table saw. I've got my pieces. I'm ready to go, ready to cut. So I'm just going to cut the other sides of my 45s. So gotta make sure I'm going the right way, oriented correctly. I'm on here on the saw, and I'm just going to come up, and I'm going to, before I even start cutting, I'm going to very carefully bring my sled up to where I think I'm going to have to cut. And I'm going to back it up, and then I'm going to make the cut. All right, now that I've cut all these out to the proper angles, let's see if they fit together. So here we go. This is the moment of truth. We've got our 4 pieces, and we got to see if they're going to fit together. So I take my plywood base, which I made. I'll put the dimensions in the video when I edit this, so you'll see what the dimensions are. I'm going to slide that into one side here. I slide it into one side like so. I'm going to slide the other side in. So I start with the 2 long pieces. You could start with however you want. That's fine. I do see I have a little area I got to clean up here with a chisel or something. So I'm just going to quickly, a little piece that broke off there before I keep going, grab my chisel and just clean that off because that will mess assembly up. Okay, so I got my 2 long sides. They look pretty good. Once again, I got to slide it. Okay, so I got the 2 long sides, and now the short sides. Do they go in? Okay, this one looks like it's going in okay. Not scared yet. So I got 3 of the 4. The moment of truth is, will the 4th piece slide in. Gingerly trying to get it going here. And I can tell you my, I think it's going to work, but I'm going to have to flex out the one side a little more than the other. It looks like my board's got a little bit of float in it. Wasn't as wide as it should be, or I cut my dado too deep on this. But I do have to do a little bit of adjusting here. But I think we're going to be okay. So right there, trays all together. And we're kind of at, it feels nice and stable. We're kind of at the point where I'm going to suggest you sand your pieces, and then we can assemble this. So I have my sander right here. I'm going to go get some paper for it. I'm going to disassemble this before I reassemble it to put it together. All right, there's nothing fun or attractive about sanding. So I got my sander here. I'm just going to speed through this so you don't have to watch it. And then I will do the assembly. All right, so I'm all sanded there. I don't know if you noticed, but I did not sand any of the mitered edges. I distinctly tried to avoid that. Mostly I was looking to make sure, and I definitely missed one spot here, a pencil mark. I was taking more time to get control of the insides, because once you assemble it, it's hard to sand the insides. So that was my main area of focus. But now I am ready to put this thing together. I'm going to get my bottle of glue here. I'm going to get nice and inside the joints. This glue looks like it's going to do a great job of that. And I want a bunch on the actual miters here. Those I'm going to rub with my finger. But in the joint I just put a little bit. That'll get moved and squished along as it goes. I'm trying not to have too much over the top. So we're getting this all nice and glued. If it spills out on the bottom, it's easier to clean up. Not what I'm looking for, but it is easier to deal with. And then I'm just going to put a little spot on each of these edges. And when those spots are on the edges, I can rub them with my fingers to kind of spread them out a wee bit. If you want to wear a glove to do that, it's fine. If you want to get a little stick to do it, it's fine. Doesn't bother me one way or another. Just try not to rub it over on any of the edges. Keep it right on that 45. So we get that 45 glued up nice. And we're going to assemble it just like we did before. I do want to make a notice, like my dados for these ones I did here are a little too deep. I'll try to fix that when I give you your stock. So I just got to be careful to try to center my board here when I'm putting it in. I don't want to put it in really deep on both sides. Oopsies. I'm going to plow it through just like so. And I'm going to go to my other side now. Hopefully you can see this fine. Go to this side now. Get the glue on there nice. And then, like I said, I'm actually going to take each of these sides. I'm just going to pull them off a little bit on each side, so hopefully I can center it out later. If there's excess glue on the bottom of the tray here, that's fine. It'll be covered by tile. Don't got to worry about that. And put my end pieces on. These ones can go in all the way, it appeared. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shove them in all the way. And if they've got to move the other pieces out of the way, I'm fine with that. So I got this one in. I'm pushing it in all the way. I'm not adjusting the side pieces yet. I'll try to do that last. But we want to get our pieces in here. Okay, so all those in. This one definitely needs to come down a little. And this one needs to go up a lot. All right, let's try to make these actually look like 45-degree miters here. Okay, it is looking like pretty good 45s. Maybe this one's a little off. This. This piece is a little taller here, so it makes it kind of hard to feel out what I need to have going. That side got pushed out. Yeah, that's good. It's okay. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my nail gun, my finish nailer, and I'm going to nail these in to dry. If you have, which we do not in class, there's special kind of clamps for miter joints that hold all four in tightly. We don't have those, so I'm going to use a nail gun. It's not a big deal. We can cover it up finishing later. So I'm going to pick a corner to get as close to a miter as I can now. Let's pick this corner. It's pretty much at a perfect miter right now. I'm just going to nail it in from one side. I'm going to go on the sides on all of these. Pop 2 finishing nails in, and that'll hold nice and tight now. Which allows me to spin it around to the next side, and I can then get that miter perfect. And it shouldn't affect this side too much at all, because that should be pretty firmly in place. Now, one tip is if the outside's a little off, but the inside's perfect, I would leave that. Because we can sand the outside to make it look good. You cannot sand the inside to make it look good. There we go. Got 2 there. Looking at the third side, it's looking pretty good right now. Squeeze. Okay, and you know what? I am going to leave this to dry before I come back and sand more. But I think this is going to be a pretty good looking set of joints after we sand. Okay, so it's all together. It is going to need some level of sanding, so that is what we will do next time. Before I sand though, I'm going to see if I have some wood putty, and I'm just going to put it on all those nail holes. Alright, so I got some wood filler. I'm just going to put this over the holes. Just really quickly, just fill them in. I would not recommend you using your screwdriver to do this. An area up here I'm just going to clean my tool off on. Okay. So that's where we're at right now. I'm going to give it like a half hour. I'll come back. Everything should be dried up enough to do a finish sand here. And then I'm going to stain it. Alright. The next 2 steps are I got to sand this down, get all the putty off it, make it nice. So I'm just going to hyperlapse that. And then once we get it all sanded, if you so choose, you could put a stain on it. Now keep in mind, I'm putting white subway tiles on this, so I think a dark stain would look good. So that's what I've got here. I've got a dark stain. Make sure you always wear gloves if you're doing a stain. And I want some dowels to put this on. So I'm going to start by putting some dowels down, and I'm going to stain on the top first, then I'll flip it over and I will stain the bottom. So I've got my stain right here. Keep in mind you only have to, if you are staining, you only have to stain kind of the top here. You in no way have to stain the tray. You can if you want. No crime against that. All right, so we have our tray all set up here, and we're going to use mastic right here to set a base for these subway tiles. And we are going to use, according to what was called for, we're going to use a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notch trowel to spread the mastic, and then I will apply the tiles and walk away for quite a while so I can start applying the grout most likely tomorrow. So let's see how this goes. I got to get the mastic open, so I'm going to move this. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. I'm going to spread the mastic on with the trowel. I'm going to grab some. This is probably actually too much. We're going to err on the side of less is more here. And I'm going to actually try to get close to the edge to start dragging this out. And we use the trowel to create these ridges. I'm going to try and actually get this. Now I am trying very hard to stay away from the edges, and I will come in here and clean the edges in a second. But I'm just going to come in and start spreading this out. Like if anyone in your house has ever done tile work around your house, this is the kind of thing you're going to do. And these ridges help you to kind of line up whatever you happen to be putting on here. Now it can be difficult doing this because we are in a confined space. And in that confined space, we do not want to do exactly what I just did here. I want to stay away from the edges because I'm going to have to clean them with probably a wet wipe or something. Okay, so I'm just going to have to wet wipe that. I'm just going to throw down a bunch of mastic here, and I'm going to say forget about worrying about the edges. Let's just get this thing done, and I'll go in with my wet wipe and clean it up. So getting edges. So I'm ready to go, and I'm going to have to do quite a bit of cleanup here, but we shall live with that. And I'm going to get some baby wipes too, because I find they're good for cleaning off. Now I'm going to try to come in here. I don't have any spacers, but I laid this out previously. And I'm just going to come in. I'm going to actually try to use my tile to get some of this stuff off the edges. Now with the tiles, I'm going to go pretty tight up to the wall with the first tiles. There's 2 of these on the side. And I'm just pushing them down gently. Nothing much. I want to keep everything in order. And I'm leaving some room for grout in the middle, but I want to be reasonably consistent throughout. And I'm just doing this pattern, 2 long ones, and then kind of 3. I'm just getting these down here. And like I said, I'm doing my best with spacing and everything. And I should have a little bit of room to come in and adjust this. What I've got here. And I'm going to get this one in there. I'm going to line them up. Now the other ones have hardened and set, so I'm just going to apply some pressure to try to keep all of these even and lined up. Okie dokie, so I am all set with my grout here. Looks dry, it's good. I brought in a sponge and a bucket to do the grout, and I have pre-mixed grout to make my life a little easier. So I got pre-mixed grout, set and grout, so I could actually use this to put the tiles on, but that's okay. No need for that. I'm going to rip the tab, open this up. And then the other tool we're going to use for this is a float. A float is what we use to spread the grout, and then after we get the grout all spread in, we're going to use the sponge to I'm going to use the sponge to clean it off because you do grout right over the tiles, and I want to get it good and in there. And we're going to use the sponge for several things. So I'm going right along and spreading with my float. There are spots that are harder to get, that's okay. We are going to hit our walls a little bit here, and that's okay too. So just going along. No, don't feel afraid to push down as long as you let it dry. That shouldn't be a problem. It's just like you do on a shower or anything like that. Backsplash behind the kitchen stove, whatever you got. I'm just going in and I'm pushing my grout down. You shouldn't need too much from the bucket. Like if you ever feel like you're running out, you can almost certainly come up in and just take a little more. Okay, now I got most of that off. Sponge time. I'm going to use the sponge now. I'm just going to come in and try to wipe all the extra off. You're probably going to have to do this again after you finish, but I'm just using this to kind of clean my surface off here. I'm using it on the wood, trying to get out of the wood here. Okay, so I got that off. Usually when I'm sponging, I have significantly more to do, so if you're doing a wall or a kitchen counters or whatever, usually goes a little longer than that, but that's okay. I got paper towel too. I'm just going to use this to pick up the excess water, and then later, if the need be, we could always go at it again. But it looks like we did a pretty good job here. We do definitely have some in the corners that need work in terms of cleaning up. I got something for that too. I'm just trying to get everything dry. In the corners, you can run your finger if you need. I'm just coming through, like I said, trying to get everything dry. But I do not want to leave any of that stuff in the corner. So a secret you can use, you can grab some baby wipes if you have them handy, or alcohol wipes or whatever. And we can just come through the baby wipes, and the baby wipes should clean everything up really well. We can always sand after, but since we stained, I don't really want to do that. You cannot stain once the grout is in, because the stain will get into the grout. So we want to avoid that at all costs. I'm just cleaning up here. This is why I said I wish I had finished it first, because then I wouldn't have to worry about it sticking. The finish would protect the wood. So I've got this pretty well cleaned off. If I have to sand it a little, I can. And then try to be very careful and touch up stain. But here's a serving tray. And in a minute, I can kind of put on final touches. I'm not going to do finish now, but you know, we're at that stage where finishing can happen once all this dries. I might tape this off a little, but finish is clear so it's not going to get in the grout. And then I can attach handles if I want. So I'll be back for that. So once you get everything dry, if you want to put finish on, you can. Now, I would actually recommend you do this before you put the tiles on. That's what I wish I had done, but I did not. So I am making do with what I have. I'm going to use shellac right now. Any kind of finish could work. It all depends on preferences. But due to its fast drying nature, I'm going to apply shellac. So I will speed on through this in a second. I'll probably put 2 or 3 coats on, and then I will check in at the end of that to show you exactly what that looks like. And I definitely got some on the tile. I don't want that to dry on the tile. So once again, I'm just going to come in here really quickly with the dry rag, clean that off. Now I'd be able to get the shellac off in a little bit, but it is very quick drying stuff. So I don't want to have to deal with it. On the tile, you can just scrape it off if you need to. If it came to that. Once again, I don't want it to really stain the grout. If I have to, I can go get an alcohol wipe and just wipe it down. So I'm going to put like 2 or 3 more coats on here. I'm going to flip it over, do the same for the bottom, and then I will come back to show you what we do at the end. So we're functionally done now. My finish is dry, it looks good. My tiles are all set. I got to dust them off a little bit from when I wiped the grout clean, but that's fine. All I got to do is I got to install the handles, and that's completely optional. I'm not providing you with handles, but if you would like to go to your local hardware store and pick up handles, I got this one for 99 cents. All you'd have to do is you have an option to do it on the top, on the side. I already pre-drilled my holes on the side. So all I have to do here is just install these handles. I would assume you'd want to center them. That's a measurement thing. So you would have to do that on your own, but I've got mine already centered and ready to go here. I'll just do that one a little bit, get the other side in. And pre-drilling really does assist in this process. Makes it go much, much quicker. And now that I got that one in, screw this one in all the way. I did check ahead of time that it would not puncture through, which it has not. That side's on nice and tight. Now I can turn it around, do the other side, and then we will be all finished here. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Like I said, the only thing I would have really done different on this is I would have done my finishing before I did any tiling. Like I did the stain, but I should have put the final coat of finish on there before I put any of the tile on. It just relieves a step and it makes it easier to get the grout off. It doesn't get into the grain that way. That's one. That's two. So there we are. One serving tray.